Well, welcome everyone. I'm Jason Fennell with Dreambox Learning. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday, March 4th, almost a year to our craziness of COVID. And this afternoon, we are joined by several teachers and educators in Texas and Florida to look at motivating and challenging math students. And as a former algebra teacher myself, I often heard, I hope you can help these kids because I sure can't help them at home. And so we're going to team with Janet Nuzzie from Pasadena ISD. We have Connie Makris from Pinellas County, Florida, as well as Julie Dupuis from Clear Creek ISD. They're going to be sharing their experiences. During their time as they're sharing, do know that we're recording, so we will post this to YouTube, so you'll be able to see it on our Dreambox Learning channel. Secondly, if you have questions, please put them in the question section, and our team will gladly be answering those. We'll take brief breaks in between to highlight any questions that maybe Janet, Connie, or Julie can answer on the spot, as well as Q&A at the end. And with that, I'm gonna transition and let Janet take it away.
All right, well, good afternoon, mathematics colleagues. My name is Janet Nuzzie, and it's definitely an honor to meet you today, and I'm excited about our conversations today as it relates to Dreambox. And so a little bit about me and my journey. I have been in education a little over 20 years. I started out as a classroom teacher in Spring ISD here in Texas at Hirsch Elementary. From that role, I transitioned into the role of an education specialist with the Region 4 Education Service Center here in Houston. And I'm now in my 10th year serving as the district instructional specialist for elementary mathematics here in Pasadena ISD. And along the way, I've been doing my best to stay involved with mathematics colleagues in the state and around the US. And so some of my synergistic efforts are noted here. I'm definitely working to stay connected through our Texas Council of Teachers of Mathematics, having served there as vice president for elementary, and also having served as a president of TASM, the Texas Association of Supervisors of Mathematics, both organizations of which are affiliates of NCTM and or NCSM. And then one other note is captured there is that one of the honors that I've had is collaborating with Dr. Nikki Newton, who most of us know in the role of elementary mathematics, and being a co-editor with a book with her called Mathematizing Your School that spotlights the work that we've been doing here in Pasadena ISD. And so we definitely work to share the work that we're doing. It's definitely an honor to be a part of the Dreambox conversations today and sharing about Dreambox and sharing the work of our district via Twitter, which is captured there below. So a little bit about our district. So again, Pasadena ISD is located in Texas. We're southeast of Houston. And so we are near the Gulf Coast. Our district has 68 campuses, 36 of which are elementary. We are fortunate in that we have a campus-based mathematics coach at each of those campuses, which is a super support, particularly as we have over 900 teachers that teach elementary mathematics in our district. We have a little over 52,000 students in our district, 84% of which are identified as being Hispanic and 86% of which are identified as being economically disadvantaged. And so to get us started and thinking about our conversations today and our journey with Dreambox, we actually began our journey with Dreambox back in 2015, 2016, where we utilized Dreambox as a resource to support our K-2 mathematicians. And when we look down below, our appreciation for Dreambox, it really stemmed from those first two bulleted items. One was we loved that Dreambox had a very purposeful development of concepts and a development of conceptual understanding. And then per the students in our district, we needed a resource that had access in English and Spanish, but also a mirrored product in English and Spanish, where all of our students were experiencing the same content. And so we continue that journey with grades K2 another year. Sure enough, along the way, our grades 3-4 teachers and coaches and administrators were like, hey, we want to use Dreambox in our grade levels as well. And so since 2017, we've been using Dreambox across the grade levels at our elementary campuses, which is kindergarten through 4th grade. So in thinking about today's conversations, where does this journey fit into today's conversations about math challenges? And so actually, after working with Dreambox for 3 years, having K4 working across all the grade levels, we started this idea of math challenges. And so today we're going to talk about our past 3 years of math challenges starting in 2018 and 2019, talk about what the efforts have looked like from the district level and also campus efforts and what we've done to celebrate, because there have been very exciting things happening. So in looking at this next slide here, this slide captures our flyer from our first year of our math challenge, which was 2018-19. And our first year, what we really wanted to do, so we'd had Dreambox for 3 years, was to emphasize 2 things. 1, how do we promote our students being in and using Dreambox? And then 2, how do we promote our teachers having conversations about the data that Dreambox provides? And so that really was the lens behind, after 3 years of using Dreambox, really emphasizing that student usage, conversations about data. So the flyer here notes our first competition. So it really was focusing on most lessons completed, okay? So we focused on, at the end of a 4-week time period, which classroom, which teacher's classroom had the most lessons completed overall, cumulative. We know time on Dreambox equates to student growth. And then also which classroom teacher out of all of the grade levels had the most lessons completed. So that was the focus of that first competition. And when we get into celebrating, what you see on the next slide there, we celebrated our teachers that had completed, or whose students had completed the most lessons. And so we see there, we visited their classrooms, dropped off a certificate, dropped off some supplies for their classroom to celebrate each teacher in every grade level. And then for our classroom teacher that had their students complete the most lessons out of anyone in the district, we recognized that teacher and the campus administrators at our school board meeting. So really drawing attention to and celebrating the efforts made to promote our students' usage of Dreambox. Then we moved to our next year, so it was our second year of our math challenge, so 2019-2020. So we continued our efforts with emphasizing the most lessons completed per grade level at the end of a 4-week competition, and also overall at the end of the 4-week competition, but we also added in a weekly recognition. And so we said, hey, you know what, it might be that you aren't one of the 5 teachers at the end that had the most lessons completed, but you're working on a weekly basis to get your students involved with Dreambox. And so we had a weekly drawing that said, hey, if your students have completed at least 50 lessons this week from your classroom, your name went into a drawing, and each week we celebrated you. So for each of this, for this one, again, most lessons completed every grade level, most lessons completed overall, but each week we were also recognizing teachers whose students completed at least 50 lessons as well. So when that was happening, to celebrate their efforts, we see that again, we continued those efforts with providing certificates. So for those teachers that had and won the drawing for having kids complete at least 50 lessons every week, we sent out a certificate and some supplies for their classroom. For our classrooms that had the most lessons completed at the end, we visited their classroom again, certificates, some balloons, some supplies to celebrate them as well. And then again, when we look on that next slide, we see that we also took our classroom teacher that had the most lessons completed out of the whole district, and we celebrated them again at our board meeting. So this was from last spring, and so that's when the pandemic had started. So we celebrated them at a virtual board meeting with a presentation and slides and an opportunity to congratulate them. And so what's noticed in there also is there's actually 2 pictures there. And so we see the word campus highlighted in blue. And that's because along the way, what I didn't know is that the campuses were having their conversations about which campus had the most lessons completed. And I started getting emails each week about, well, where is my campus in terms of overall lessons completed? So what it became evident was, hey, folks were interested in a campus competition as well. So after the competition started, we added in a campus competition to recognize the campus that overall had the most lessons completed. And again, that's the picture there on the right-hand side. We celebrated that campus coach and the campus administrators at that virtual board meeting as well. So those are the first 2 years of our competition. So now we head into this year. And so this year for our competition, we've continued some of those same efforts. We still are working to acknowledge and celebrate our teachers that have the most lessons completed in every grade level. Still celebrating our teacher that has the most lessons completed out of the whole district. We're continuing to celebrate and acknowledge our teachers on a weekly basis, but this time we tried this teacher dashboard scavenger hunt, which was to encourage our teachers to dig into the dashboard, answer some questions about utilizing the reports, different data that's provided, and enter into a weekly scavenger hunt drawing. And then the campus competition from the year before, we transitioned that into really still being about most lessons completed, but really about most efficient usage. So working to spotlight Dreambox's predictive insights feature and encouraging campuses to have their students complete at least 12 lessons during the month of February. So our campus competition continued, but shifted really to spotlight that Dreambox predictive insights feature. And so with that, we've started a little bit of celebrating. And so this next slide here captures some celebrations from that weekly Dreambox scavenger hunt. So learning from one of my colleagues here in Texas, we announced that each week's scavenger hunt prompts via Twitter. Teachers could enter their response via a Google form. We use the wheel of names to select 3 teachers each week, and we sent out certificates and some supplies for their classroom. So definitely working to honor teachers on a weekly basis. And then looking ahead to ending our competition, what's captured here is we have then the certificates that capture how we'll continue to recognize our, and I think we'll keep going one more slide, Jason. There we go. Thank you so much. We'll continue to recognize the most lessons completed in every grade level with their certificate, with classroom visits and supplies. We'll still continue to recognize our teacher that has the most lessons completed or whose students completed the most lessons overall. Again, certificate, classroom visit, but also recognize them at our virtual school board meeting that will be happening at the end of this month. And then we'll continue that campus celebration, and that we'll visit that campus, celebrate them, drop off a certificate, balloons, and some supplies, and then also recognize them at our next school board meeting, which will be virtual as well. So continuing those celebrations. And then along the way, again, we're in year 3, so we've been having these district competitions. This year really worked to provide our campuses with some tools to support some campus competitions. Our coaches really have been leading the way with some really unique ideas before now, but this year we worked to provide some tools from the district level. So one that's captured here is that Dreambox dashboard scavenger hunt. So giving our campuses some prompts that they can use with their teachers on a weekly basis to encourage their teachers to dig into their Dreambox dashboard. We also took the certificates that we've been providing and provided them for our campus coaches to use at their campus, so they have certificates that they can give for campus recognitions each week during the competition. So those are some tools that we've provided from the district level for our campuses. And then along the way, when we look at these next pictures here, we see some of these tools in action. So we see in this picture on the left-hand side, we see our campus coaches using these certificates to celebrate classrooms within every grade level that have had the most lessons completed during each week of the competition. The picture on the right, we see the certificates being used to celebrate teachers in their classrooms, but also students who had the most lessons completed for each week during the challenge. When we look at the next set of pictures, we see campus coaches using certificates. These certificates provided by Dreambox, also to celebrate students and teachers and their usage of Dreambox during our competition. And then the picture on the right is actually from last spring, but what it captures is a video recording that one of our coaches made to celebrate our students. That might have been at the time everyone was learning at home, but to celebrate all of our students working in Dreambox, but to post those celebrations virtually through their campus's Facebook page or through an email blast to their campus to celebrate their campus recognitions. But if the students aren't there face-to-face to get the certificate or take the picture, then they've worked to celebrate those students virtually as well. So definitely drawing attention to our great team of coaches and the work that they're doing to promote celebrations at their campus. And then this next picture here captures a few more ideas that we've used to, again, celebrate during these Dreambox math challenges. On the left-hand side is one of our coaches who's using the idea of a paper plate awards. You see that blue plate there, the blue and green plate captured there. One of our coaches started this at our campus where she posted paper plate awards outside the doors of teachers' classrooms. It was at the beginning of the year to spotlight different aspects of their math workshop environment. We've since adapted that idea to include Dreambox awards. So here's one of our math coaches who's ready to go around at the end of each week or sometimes at the end of each month and hand out these Dreambox paper plate awards to celebrate student usage in each grade level. What's captured there are those small traveling trophies. Seeing those in a tweet in some school district that passed along a traveling trophy between teams of teachers. The traveling trophy is like 3 inches tall, and so, but it's still fun nonetheless to pass along between teachers to celebrate student usage with Dreambox. And then the picture on the right, one of our coaches has definitely challenged all of our practices in that at his campus, they've got their certificates, they've got their recognitions, but they since have also handed out sashes and tiaras to recognize the teachers in each grade level that have had the students that have had the most usage as well. So we see a lot of acknowledgement and celebration of our students' usage of Dreambox, but also celebrating our teachers who are the ones making it happen in their classroom as well. And so in thinking about those celebrations and really about this whole idea of a math challenge from a district perspective, if we look at this next slide here is really when you think about what this might look like for you, whether it's in your district, your campus, or just within your classroom, is really thinking about considering your why, your what, and your how. And so on our end, things that we've learned is to figure out, so what is our why? And so along the way, we really wanted to empower our students in their success in being mathematicians, but also empower them in their usage of Dreambox, and also empower our teachers and our campus leaders in their proficiency in encouraging student use of Dreambox, but also using the dashboard and celebrating their efforts as well. That was our why. Again, increase student usage of Dreambox, which we know equates to growth, and celebrate the efforts as well. Our what, then we've seen, is kind of transitions each year. We started out just most lessons completed. Then we said, hey, let's recognize teachers whose classrooms might not have the most lessons completed, but whose classrooms are participating. Let's also celebrate our campus overall usage as well. And then our most recent scavenger hunt, then digging into the Dreambox dashboard, or having Dreambox dashboard scavenger hunts, and then also highlighting campus usage through most sufficient usage. Again, to spotlight and have all of us learn a little bit more about Dreambox Predictive Insights feature. And then determining your how is definitely being strategic, is knowing your what and knowing your when. So for us, we started our challenges after having Dreambox for 3 years, and after our first year of having all grade levels involved from a district perspective. And so that seemed to be about the right time. We had everybody on board. So now let's really begin digging deeper into the resource and what it provides. So being strategic about your what and your when, and of course, being strategic about how you celebrate. So certificates, pencils, supplies, balloons, we post on Twitter, we post on Facebook. Again, recognition at school board meetings, paper plate awards, traveling trophies, chocolate along the way definitely always makes folks happy. And of course, the idea of sashes there. And so again, in thinking about our work, it's really thinking about, in replicating these efforts, what is your why, your what, and your how. And if we head to this last slide here, it takes us back to just where we started our conversations today, and our appreciation for Dreambox is, one, we started on this journey because we appreciated the purposeful development of concepts and then the development of conceptual understanding. And we needed a resource that had mirrored resources, English and Spanish. But along the way, as we become more immersed in the resource, we definitely appreciate the adaptive features that are there to support the individual needs of our mathematicians. We definitely appreciate the customized and collaborative support from Dreambox in particular, and our work with Danielle Sellenreck and Debbie Thompson. And we definitely appreciate the purposeful data that Dreambox provides, both from the district perspective, campus perspective, classroom perspective, and student perspective. And so we say that because in all of our efforts here, it really has been a team effort. One of our mantras in our district is that mathematicians learn and grow together. And where we've landed at the end of these 3 years really is reflective of a team working together to make mathematics accessible to our young mathematicians. So with that, that concludes my conversations and thinking about Dreambox math challenges from a district perspective. And so I'll pause there and turn it back over to Jason. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janet. And Connie, it's your turn.
Okay, so my name is Connie Makris, and I am a 5th grade math and science teacher in Pinellas County Schools, which is in Florida. And I wanted to start off by talking about motivating teachers. The culture of the school starts with the administrators and the teachers. If we're looking to increase motivation in students, you must start with the staff. How can you get your teachers more excited about math instruction? I'm going to use Dreambox as my example to refer back to, but these ideas can be used for just about any subject area or initiative that you are working with. So next slide, please, Jason. Our district's recent implementation of Dreambox Champions has been a driving force in the drastic increase of Dreambox usage in our schools. There has been more discussion about Dreambox within school buildings, and more teachers have started making Dreambox a priority in their classrooms. It seems to be best if each building has 2 Dreambox champions, 1 primary teacher and 1 intermediate teacher. Although not all schools are following this model. In some schools, the Dreambox champion is an administrator, and in other schools, only 1 teacher is taking the responsibility. Personally, I feel it is best to foster leadership in your teachers, so having 2 teachers partner together is the most effective. Our Dreambox champions receive regular professional development from our district's Dreambox trainers regarding best practices in using Dreambox in the classroom, accessing reports, analyzing data, and celebrating success. The champions work collaboratively with their administrators to analyze school-wide data, create school-wide goals, and facilitate PLCs focusing on Dreambox implementation and data analysis. The Dreambox champions monitor school Dreambox data regularly and communicate areas of strength, growth, and weakness with their staff. They celebrate teachers, classes, and individual students who meet their goals using school-wide incentives and celebrations. When teachers and administrators foster a culture of goal setting, growth mindset, and celebrating success, these traits will rub off on the students. So this idea of Dreambox champions can also be used in other subject areas you are looking to improve. Look for the teacher leaders in your school. Find out what they are passionate about and let them inspire your faculty to grow in that area or initiative. You can have a science champion, a reading champion, a writing champion, whatever your school needs at that time. Administrators should assist these teacher leaders in analyzing school-wide data, setting goals, and celebrating success. These teacher leaders could also be responsible for monitoring these goals in your school improvement plan. Next slide, please. Once your teachers are inspired and motivated, it is time to get the kids motivated. If the adults at your school school building keep Dreambox as a priority and they are excited about it, the kids will naturally be excited too. This is true with any initiative you are focusing on improving. What is monitored is viewed as what is important, and what is monitored shows growth. When students know you are paying attention and monitoring their work, they will put more effort into it, and they will be more productive. If they don't think you are paying attention to what they are working on, they will think you do not hold it to a high priority. It is true with anything you do in the classroom. Set goals, monitor data, facilitate quick data chats with students, and celebrate success. Next slide, please. When students are in Dreambox, you should be in Dreambox. I know it is second nature for us as teachers to monitor students by walking around the room and looking at what they're doing at their own computers or what they're writing down. With Dreambox, it is better to do this by monitoring the activity feed and the dashboard. These reports will give you more information about students' proficiency, what they are working on, and how productive they are being. If you are monitoring the activity feed while students are working, you can celebrate successes and intervene on the spot. Students will see that you are making this a priority when they see you are monitoring their work, just like you would monitor their homework or any other classwork they are working on. When students see you are monitoring their progress in Dreambox, the same way you do with core math instruction, they will become more productive and motivated to work just as hard as they do on any other task. Make time for Dreambox or whatever it is that you're working on improving. Develop a plan for when you will have your students work in Dreambox. Write it in your lesson plans. Will your students complete 1 to 2 lessons a day? Will they spend a longer chunk of time 1 to 2 times per week? Will some lessons in your weekly goal be completed at home for homework? You can't expect students to meet their weekly goals or daily goals if you do not give them the time to do so. Set goals with your students. Give them something to work toward and track their process toward their goal. I tell my 5th graders that they should complete 1 to 2 lessons per day and 10 lessons per week. That's our district initiative. Students know that I'm monitoring this because I check in with them when I see they are starting to fall behind and on their lessons, and I celebrate with them when I see they are on the right track and meeting their goals. Tailor your school-wide, class, and individual student incentives to your students' interests. You need to find out what your students will work for. What motivates your students? My students are highly competitive, so I created some friendly competition between both my classes to motivate them. When you tailor your incentives to the interests of your students and the culture of your school, you will have better outcomes. Consistency is key. None of this hard work will pay off if you are not consistent. Find a system that you know you can be consistent with. Don't create overly complicated incentives. When brainstorming school, class, and student incentives, think to yourself, will I be able to implement this on my busiest week? Or will I push this aside during a busy week to work on something that's consuming my time? Start small and simple and make sure that you can keep up with it. I understand that all students are different and students are different. These ideas may not work for every single student. Some students need more motivation with tier 2 incentives. Some students will need to start with smaller goals to work toward so you can keep them motivated. The whole idea is to make sure you know your kids and you know your school. Next slide, please. So these are just a couple of ideas some teachers around our district in Pinellas County have shared with us that they're working on to increase motivation with Dreambox around their buildings, but they're also using them for math in general. So a lot of these ideas can be used for a lot of different goals. So the picture in the upper left corner is an incentive called High Fives. A teacher in our district created this to use in her classroom. Students who complete 5 or more lessons each week in Dreambox get to decorate a hand and post it on the wall with their name on it. There are also other teachers around her campus who are doing this with their own individual class goals in mind. So some teachers are using this with math testing. Students who show growth on their math test will get a high five they can decorate and put on the wall. This can also be used with any weekly or monthly goal you're working on in the class. So it could be any subject area, big or small. The picture on the right-hand corner shows some Dreambox friends posted in the windows of classrooms. They're called the Goobs. Our district's Dreambox usage goal is 90%. So each month, this school's Dreambox champion pulls that student usage data for each teacher, and every teacher who has 90% student usage or more for the month finds a Dreambox friend on her window. This idea is to see how many friends they can collect by the end of the school year. So they just keep adding more and more at the beginning of each month for the prior month. So this would be an example of a school-wide incentive where each class is competing to see how many Dreambox friends they can collect. And you can take this idea and match it up with any goal. It doesn't have to just be Dreambox. At the bottom where it says the race to 5 lessons, this is an incentive I'm using in my classroom for Dreambox. I am a departmentalized 5th grade math teacher, so I have 2 classes. I was getting my students into Dreambox often, but they weren't being productive and they weren't meeting their lesson goals. So I decided it was time to have a friendly competition between the 2 classes. One of my classes is my PCS online, so it's an online class, and the other class is face-to-face. So what was happening was my face-to-face class was being more productive naturally because I was watching them. The online class, even though they had the same amount of time on Dreambox, they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. So it was time to have some competition here. So each morning I check the student usage report to see the average lessons per week, and I move the Dreambox friend left or right according to what the data says. So if it says that we have 3 lessons right now per week, an average of 3 lessons, I move our little friend over to 3. So I have this imported on Google Sheets and I embed it to my homepage of my Canvas course so that both classes could see it. The online kids can see it when they access Canvas. And then when I have the face-to-face kids working on Dreambox, I have it posted on my smartboard. I have teachers on my campus who have partnered up with grade level teams so that classes within a grade level are competing against each other. I also have teachers who partnered up with their reading buddy class from another grade level to compete against each other. So we have other classes from other grade levels competing against each other, which is really cool. The only thing I suggest is make sure that each grade level has the same exact goal that they're working toward. So for us, our 4th and 5th graders have a goal of 10 lessons per week, but then K through 3 has a goal of 5 lessons per week. So it wouldn't be appropriate for 5th grade to compete against 3rd grade because they have a different goal. Our teachers who partner together, they save this slide in OneDrive, PowerPoint Online, and they work off the same PowerPoint Online slide so that it's always updated and it's live. We also have another school who is doing weekly shout outs. So each week, the Dreambox champion or administrator announces students, classes, and teachers who met their goals, showed growth, and showed growth on the PA system. So it's at the end of the day, they get on the PA system and they celebrate students, classes, teachers. They take the time to celebrate whatever they are working on as a school and individual successes loud and proud. At my school, we have gold notes. So teachers use these to praise good academic behavior. The focus is on academics, but sometimes we use it for good behavior, normal behavior too. So academic behavior could be really good problem solving skills, using academic vocabulary in a response, written or verbal, really anything that just completely impresses us during the school day. So maybe you pose a really hard math problem and you got one student in the whole class that got it right, gold note. So then on Wednesdays, we bring the gold notes to the cafeteria, and a representative from the front office, usually a school administrator, announces during lunch who earned gold notes that week and why they earned them. So their whole grade level gets to cheer them on and be really proud of them. They get to go up on the stage to get their gold note. They get to get something from the treasure chest. And it's really just a 5 to 10 minute mini assembly that happens during lunch. So it doesn't take any instructional time and it's very low maintenance. It's very easy to do. The other two resources on this slide are just like some examples of tracking sheets and certificates I found in the Dreambox resources page. So if you haven't explored that page yet, please do it because there's really good stuff in there and it's a good starting point. So I want you to notice how simple these ideas are. They are quick and easy to implement consistently, even on the busiest weeks. It doesn't take a long time to pull this data that we're pulling to motivate these students and have these challenges. And it's very quick and easy to celebrate. Next slide, please. So it is so important to give your students something to work toward. Setting goals, tracking progress, and celebrating success helps to motivate our students to work hard and productively. But how can you make math practice fun? We know we need math practice because it helps us to reach fluency, but sometimes it can seem really boring and monotonous, and it just kind of never ends, right? So in one of our district math trainings in Pinellas County, our 5th grade math coach, Kristen Popke, used Microsoft OneNote to create an escape room for our unit review. As long as your students have access to OneNote, this is the easiest and most fun way to make practicing for fluency or review. Like, I mean, it is just so much fun. You don't need to only use OneNote for this. There are other websites out there that can help you make an escape room and different ways you could do it. So if OneNote doesn't work for you, then you can do a little Googling and find some things out. All she did was she took problems from the math workbook that we would have already been working on anyway and put them in different sections on the OneNote. So if you look at the visuals that we have on that slide, you can see that there's different sections going down. There's a challenge 1, challenge 2, challenge 3. Those are all it's one problem per section, just taken straight out of the workbook. It really only takes about 15 to 20 minutes to set this up. So the first time you do it, it might take a little bit longer, but you just save the template and you just change the problems out and the passwords. Each section is password protected. So basically the correct answer from the problem is the password to get into the next challenge. So they can't move on unless they get it right. So that's kind of cool. And we're going to be sharing some directions on how to create these and how to export them so that you can share them with students if that's something you're interested in. So I've only done 2 of these so far, just learned how to do this a couple weeks ago. I've done 2 of these with my 5th graders and they just love them. They love working together in breakout rooms and from their desks 6 feet apart to find the passwords to get into the next section. They're great for practicing skill fluency, reviewing for assessment. Our district is currently working on creating some of these for us to use at the end of the year for FSA review. So again, if you don't have access to OneNote, there are websites out there that will do this for you. So just look for escape room websites for kids, and you'll find all kinds of things out there. So that's all I have for you guys today. So Jason.
Thank you, Connie. And Julie, it's your turn.
Okay. Hello, my name is Julie Dupuis, and I am from Clear Creek Independent School District, and I have everything is up there on the screen, but instead of just reading it from there, I can tell you that I have taught 5th grade, 3rd grade, 1st grade, 4th grade. The majority of my years have been in 4th grade, and I have had some people will say I'm crazy, but I have had the luxury of teaching Clear Connections, which is online virtual teaching all year long to a self-contained 4th grade classroom. And I started out with 39, and now I have 25 at the moment, and they have been with me all through the year. So I have had a really great experience with Dreambox, how it can apply, and not only Dreambox, but just math working virtually online, because, you know, as we know from 2019, 2020, 2019, 2021, what we're going into, you just never know, you know, what's going to happen. And Dreambox honestly was like an amazing thing to use to motivate kids during the pandemic, because you know, you could connect with parents, you could conference with parents, you could see growth, and the kids love the little emojis and the drawings and stuff. So that was something that, even though they weren't at school, there was a connection that I could make, you know, with them. And at the time when the pandemic first started, I taught 1st grade. So let me just say that 4th graders is a lot neater, because I have taught my 4th graders how to present their screen to me. I use Dreambox in a conversing with my students. They will share with me the troubles and the tribulations they have with Dreambox. And I talked to them about, you know, one of the things that, you know, Dreambox over the years in the area of math is amazing to me, because when I first started teaching, I would have loved to have it, because all I dreamed about was having like a prescription, you know, where I could just write a prescription for my students' math homework, you know, dealing with what I was doing in class. And so with Dreambox, I can address issues with gifted students, with EL students, with dyslexic students. I mean, you name it. It's like I can address their needs, and also kids that you get on different levels, whether they're special ed, whether they're a new child that you haven't had all year long, they're from a different state, you have no data, because, you know, especially during the pandemic, there was no, you know, STAR test in the state of Texas. So you had kids who hadn't had a test or even a quiz online, basically, or any data since December. And then all of a sudden you get them in August. And, you know, for example, one of the things that we had with Dreambox was the lessons were too hard, because I think their parents were helping them during the pandemic, because they're like, okay, we want you to learn. We'll sit by you learning, you know, learning with you. And then they got to 4th grade, and they have positive and negative integers, and you got to figure out, you know, what to do with that. And so when you get a new student, like I just got one last week, hasn't been in a school that had Dreambox, and wasn't in the state of Texas, so I had no data. Well, just looking and conversing with her and working through that, I can look at, okay, let me try this lesson with you on this grade level. You know, okay, tell me how you did, you know, and then we conversed about that. And that is so much more powerful than giving a worksheet and having this child go through and do 20 questions on addition, 20 on subtraction, so me to figure out her levels, where I can get and assign her a Dreambox lesson, and then go immediately back at the end of the day and even call her and her mother and say, okay, let's look at what you did, you know, and then talk to me. And those minutes is maximizing not only my time, but my potential to help her as an educator. And that support is amazing. And even in my student small groups, we conference. And I know that, you know, with Dreambox, one of the big things that parents have been told is like, oh, don't help your child. This is a mindset, a growth for them. Well, when you get into the mindset of an 8, 9, and 10-year-old, what they're asking for help, it may be help just manipulating their you know, their mouse or touching a screen, or they don't understand how the icons. So it's amazing how even parenting parents, like telling them, okay, look, you're not helping your child. Please listen to your child and ask them, what do you need help with? You know, so motivating and challenging. My kids light up when I have conversations with them, when they get to talk about what they're doing on Dreambox or any math. I mean, because, you know, it's a choice board. You know, we know that Dreambox isn't, it was started out as an intervention tool. It wasn't, okay, this is a Dreambox curriculum. That isn't what Dreambox, you know, the company is trying to do. They're trying to help educators and mathematicians and students stay involved with math, learn, okay, how can we help them? How can we challenge? Because you have gifted students who they don't when let me put it this way. One of them in a conference with me shared with me that she would rather do worksheets than Dreambox because the help button, she said, when I click help, she goes, it doesn't tell me how to do it. It tells me what it doesn't want me to do. You know, and she's thinking it's going to be like Google or a chat bar, and it's going to give her all the information right there. So it's causing her to think, you know, it's time consuming. It's making her communicate with me why she's not completing her lesson when I know that she can do it. You know, so, I mean, that is just so deep, you know, not only in thinking and processing, and as educators, it gives us what we need to know to move forward. And then also it gives us what we need to know to step back. Because when I converse with my students about Dreambox and I can align, I can tell you that I can look at my Dreambox predictive indicators. I can look at where they're doing on my weekly skills and my journal and everything that I'm talking to them about. And even when they're using Paint to do their math problems, and it's all in line. I mean, there isn't any gaps. It's not like Dreambox is showing me, oh, they've created this many lessons, because I'm personalizing my lessons. One of the great things about Dreambox and where it's going to go and where it can go is it's not about how many lessons. It's not about how many minutes. That's not going to help you. You may have a student when you look at, and I think a lot of educators don't understand now that when you look at how many minutes or lessons your students have completed, you have to look at the why. Why is this student, who I know is gifted, has only done 2 lessons in the last month? Where you have a child who maybe in the area of dyslexia or ESL, and they're knocking out 8 or 10 a week. I mean, they are doing it. They are loving it. Well, when you look at, like me as an educator, I go in and I assign lessons. And if I know that a child, I can see, okay, this child hasn't completed this lesson. This child only spent this much time, and I'm looking at the quizzes and they're not on, you know, they did not master their subtraction with regrouping. Well, then I can go back and I'll assign 3rd grade, even though they're in 4th grade, until they, you know, I'm working with them in intervention, I'm working with them in small group, and then they're mastering those lessons. Well, then their confidence is built so they can move on. So you have to look at, okay, oh, you know what, this child, I had early intervention, and they are making, instead of even telling them to do their lessons, they're completing their 8 lessons by Thursday, when it's a weekly goal of, you know, Dreambox has the goal of 5 lessons a week. Our district has come up with 8 lessons a week for 4th graders. That's what their challenge is. And so when I'm looking at it, and this child has all their lessons by Wednesday, but this gifted child only has 2, and I know that they can do it. I know they're smart. I don't know what's going on with them. Well, then it makes me, I need to go back and redo, you know, say, okay, let me look at them and how can I personalize the lesson for them? Let me see how they would do on the 3rd grade geometry. Take off the 4th, you know, and go back and reassign that and build their confidence up and that foundation. Because, you know, you have a lot of students who, you know, face it, last year during the pandemic, they were given 2 hour in Clear Creek, they were given 2 hours of math basically a week. And if that was on, you know, Dreambox, well, if their parents were helping them, and then you have children who had the lack of connectivity because of internet, they didn't have devices at home, they weren't working on it. I mean, and then they didn't have a Khan Academy open next to them, and they weren't, the parents didn't even know where to go. There are huge gaps that we're going to have to close, and Dreambox can help close those gaps. I mean, it really can, but you know, it can't be, I can tell you that working with educators, you know, you hear the things like, well, I don't have the students who are the highest achievers. You know, I don't have the students who are motivated to do because they want to, I don't have the PTA's president's daughter in my class, you know, and it's not about that. It's about, okay, if your children aren't completing the lessons in your class, why are they not completing the lesson? And talk to them. It's talking to the students. I mean, you know, now Dreambox has kind of like the choice board where they can even pick on what concept they want to learn that day, whether it's geometry, whether it's algorithms. I mean, and they're using that vocabulary when they talk to me in their conferences. They're sharing that vocabulary, not even looking at their screen, you know, but they're able to share their screen with me, tell me what the issues are. So, I mean, it just really is amazing. And I think the motivator is, it can be a simple, you know, message to the students on the Dreambox program. It can be a text to their parents. Your child is doing amazing work on Dreambox. I am so impressed. I can't tell you how many parents have told me thank you just for being specific about where is my child doing well in, you know, what can I see? And then going over with, you know, your child did not have enough data, they have insufficient usage. And the parent was like, what? I had no idea, you know, but that's good for me. And even taking into, you know, when you have your child study teams and they're like going, how is that child performing in your class? And you can say, well, you know, they haven't, you know, I've encouraged them and they're not keeping up with their accountability on Dreambox. You know, okay, well, let's bring that in. And I use that on my conference forums with the parents that I address that as a concern, you know, and it opens that door. So it's an awareness, it's education, you know, it's everything because, you know, in education and with kids, it's not one thing serves all, you know, we have to make it work. And the sooner we start, the better.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, thank you so much. Yeah, because I think kind of pulling in those parents is critical and important. And
it really is.
yeah, and so I hate cutting you off, but I know we wanted to
No,
give.
please do. I'm passionate about teaching and kids, so I kind of get crazy with it.
No, you're good. But what we wanted to do is also just remind everybody here, because I had a couple of questions they were asking about if this is going to be recorded, and it is being recorded. But what I also want to let you know is that we the PDFs, because some of these awards are like, and Connie was talking about the escape room directions and all those kinds of things, those will be on there, the paper plate awards, you know, so those types of things, we are going to have a folder that will be sent to everyone along with the link as a follow-up. So I wanted to make sure that you did get that. And I know I was answering some questions, but if you go to the GoToWebinar control panel and you hit the little next to where it says questions, there's an arrow, like a square with an arrow, that will open up where you can see the answers to the questions. Because I think sometimes, I think I was answering some questions and people weren't seeing that they are getting answered. So I think that is great. So the other thing that I wanted to have you before, I wanted to have some questions and some question answer time. So you could put the questions in the chat. And while you were kind of putting some questions in the chat, I was going to go ahead and have, go one more, Jason, and I was going to let Ashley, one of our Dreambox colleagues, just kind of share really briefly about the Spring Math Challenge, because we are having that. So if you are a Dreambox user, there is this challenge. So Ashley, did you want to just kind of share really quick?
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. So hi, everyone. My name is Ashley, and I'm the Customer Marketing Manager at Dreambox. I'm really excited to share that registration has opened for our National Spring Math Challenge. So current US and Canada-based Dreambox teachers are all invited to participate in this fun event to promote more learning on Dreambox. There are prizes up for grabs for students and teachers, including Dreambox swag, Chromebooks for school, and more. So how does it work? It's easy. First, teachers, please register. You can go ahead and go to that URL at the bottom of that page. Only one registration is needed per teacher. All of your classrooms will be automatically registered. And then once the challenge starts on March 22nd, students just need to complete the recommended 5 lessons per week to be entered into our weekly drawings. So we'll have weekly winners by region, one from each learning environment. And at the end of the challenge, we'll have a grand prize drawing for those students who have consistently completed 5 lessons per week throughout the duration of the challenge. So Dreambox teachers, we'd love to see you participate in this fun spring event. Please register and of course, reach out to our team if you have any questions. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. I was going to say, does anyone have any? I was going to look here to see. I also wanted to, before I get into the questions, also wanted to say when you have the follow-up, when you get the follow-up folder with some of these materials, I also had a couple of articles, one from Edutopia and one from EdWeek, that we've also linked so that you'll be able to get, they talk about kind of intrinsic words versus extrinsic. And I think that's pretty important to create those lifelong learners. So we also have that, and also how to make your when you're celebrating students, kind of getting it more student-centered and having that vocabulary with those students. But looking at the questions, I had one question was saying when you, they were asking about motivating those intermediate students, those students that are in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, how is that different than if you're motivating some of the K2 students?
So in my experience, I've taught in failing Title I schools, and I've taught in an A school. Usually it's just keep praising them. Just every time you see them doing something good, tell them that you see it. They want you to see them. Also in intermediate grade levels, a lot of them have at that point gotten into sports. They tend to be competitive. So doing some kind of friendly competition has usually worked pretty well for me. I try to stay away from tangible awards because those get old really quickly and then they get expensive. But just try to praise them loud and proud. Oh my goodness, sorry.
I know from teaching 1st grade to 4th grade, you know, one of the things with 1st grade was big was that if the class met their goal, like we would have a class goal, because working together, like, you know, kids are social and they will do things for their peers that they won't even do for themselves. I mean, that's just the truth. And so popsicle parties or extra recess, like 15 minutes of extra recess at the end of the month, if they met their, you know, weekly or monthly goal, or however you want to set it, you know, that was huge to them. And with 4th grade, you know, it again, you know, is individual, but also class. But then even if your school is doing a campus-wide or grade level award, you can also, as a teacher, just challenge your own kids to, okay, you know, what do y'all think is achievable? You know, what's a reasonable thing that we can do? And then, let's do this, you know, and then you just set higher goals as you go each month, because you have to get them excited and they have to be, oh, we got this, instead of, oh, that class always wins. Because when they hear other classes on announcements and stuff, they're like, oh, they're always the winners, you know. And you have kids, I have a little boy in my class who I love to death, but it's so funny, is because he is an engineer. I mean, he gets his stuff done. I have to make him put the brakes on because I'm like, whoa, that's not due till Wednesday. Okay, stop. I mean, and we first had the fall Dreambox challenge. I had to stop him after he had done 30 lessons, like within 3 or 4 days. I'm like, whoa, because he is such an achiever. Like, he has a to-do list and he wants to do it, you know? So I just think that, you know, there's different things that you can do, but definitely rewarding them for any, I mean, at first for any little thing. And it's not about, and I guess it is the small stuff, because it's like if they think in their mind that they can't do it or that they're not recognized or valued, then they're not going to continue, and it's not going to be successful, because it can be a Post-it note. I mean, on their desk. I mean, I have virtual students, so, but I mean, we do the high fives and the claps, you know, for each other, and call outs, you know. So it just depends where your kids are. If they're in class, I mean, kids still love Post-it notes on their desk saying good job and a smiley face. They do.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's okay. Data, there's always something to celebrate in data. And if you can't find something to celebrate for a specific student or a specific class or a specific school, you're not looking at the right report. You have to find something. So even if you're doing like school-wide shout outs or something of that sort, and you notice that you have this one goal that you keep working toward, and you're calling out the same class every time that's winning it, change the goal. Switch it up, because chances are the other class that's not getting called is probably excelling. Chances are that class is probably excelling in a different area. Maybe they're making more growth. Maybe their lessons aren't super high, but guess what? They don't have any alerts. You know, maybe they're taking a really long time to work on those lessons and they're working really, really hard. Celebrate that class's growth. So it's all about how you look at the data. Look for something to celebrate, because there's something to celebrate in every data set.
And I do think the key is you've got to know your students and just see, you know, what do they like? What do they like to do? I thought the idea of, you know, they were doing the Dreambox boob that was in the windows of the classroom, but I mean, you could do it for anything, and it would be anything that the students are really into, putting that out there. So yeah, I thank you guys so much for sharing that. Let's see. See if there's anything. I was gonna say, I know some people are saying they're having to leave. We all know that. I mean, the life of a school teacher or educator, we know that you have to jump off, so that's fine. And like I said, this is recorded, so. Okay, well, I don't, Jason, do you see anything else?
We have 2 minutes, so I want to be respectful of time. There's some unanswered questions in the chat, and we will get you answers individually. One that I'll address is Christina had asked, is excessive Dreambox usage discouraged? We have a 4th grader at our school who has completed about 80 lessons this week. If I ask my 10th grader, hey, do you think it's healthy to binge watch Netflix and Amazon? She might disagree, but as a parent, I would say, yeah, too much. And so for Dreambox, 80 lessons is too much. We don't want them to binge through it because we want that spread out so they're getting adequate access to the math over time. And so definitely want to have a conversation about dialing it back, and excited for their enthusiasm to complete, but we also want it to be healthy engagement. I want to thank you all for your time.